The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, 2011's pretty much swan song for the Nintendo Wii. After that, there wasn't any major games that Nintendo put out on the little system that pretty much surprised everyone. But now we have some rumors. Pretty much we've gotten them before with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Mr. Aonuma actually had to come out and say, hey, there is no Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Switch a couple years ago. But a new listing on Amazon UK kind of points in an opposite direction and has gotten a lot of Zelda fans pretty excited for the future of that game on Nintendo's most current platform, the Nintendo Switch. So what are the possibilities or the odds that we could see this epic 2011 Nintendo Wii game on the Switch? Well, let's dig right in. Now, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is a very interesting game because you actually used the Wii remote as your sword. So essentially what they were trying to do here was kind of put you in Link's shoes like never before, because in this game you can take the sword and you can slash it diagonal and Link would slash the sword diagonal. You can slash the sword up and down and he would do the sword up and down. You can point the sword up skyward and you can charge it up for a spin attack, more like it. So there was a lot of very unique and cool things that they implemented into this game that was very specific of the Wii hardware itself. Back when I played the game, I was extremely excited to kind of be in the shoes of Link and mimic his moves side by side. It was a very unique and interesting concept that, to be honest, wasn't really done that well on the Nintendo Wii. There was one game that I've played and it was called Red Steel 2 that did a pretty good job. It was the first third-party game to use Nintendo's new Wii Motion Plus technology, which gave you greater accuracy and control over your character and their in-game movements, and it worked fairly well, albeit with a slight bit of delay. Now, Nintendo actually made things a little bit better, in my opinion, with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Pretty much everything mimicked one-to-one. There was some janky animations here and there, but overall, I thought it was pretty good for the tech and kind of the era that we were in at the time. Now, did I love the game more so than any other Zelda game? Probably not, but I respected what they were trying to do there. But it wasn't my favorite Zelda game. But that's actually not important when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and if it's even possible for this game to come back. Now, if you look at the tech that the Nintendo Switch uses, could they actually emulate that with the Wii motion tech and what they did on there? Well, they'd have to rewrite a number of different things within the game itself. You can't just put that over one-to-one, then all of a sudden it works. But the Nintendo Switch is equipped to handle that type of motion-controlled technology. The Nintendo Switch has a gyroscope and it has certain things that you can do with the Joy-Cons to make it to where you can emulate that experience. But the big thing here would be, how would you be able to get it to play normally? So if someone wants to play in handheld or portable mode without playing in tabletop mode, how would that work? And what if somebody doesn't want to use motion controls at all? What if they just want to use the Nintendo Switch Pro controllers? Because you guys know sometimes with the Joy-Cons drift and things like that, or some people just don't like motion controls, period, which was one of the, I would say, problems that the Nintendo Wii had when people didn't want to use motion controls and there wasn't options for people. Now with the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's been a lot better with most of their games in making sure people have options to where if you want to use some motion, you can use motion in games, or if you want to just turn that off and use standard controls, you can do so. So I think that they would have to actually make it for both. And how would you do that? How would you make it to where it was coherent with someone playing with just a standard controller, but then somebody can also pick up the Joy-Cons and emulate the experience that we got back on the Wii? Well, there was a game that came out on the Nintendo Wii that Nintendo could probably take some guidance from, and that was No More Heroes 2. That was a game that had some of the same, I would say, complaints that the Nintendo Wii got with a lot of its motion motion controlled games, it's like I have to waggle, I have to use motion. I would like the option, and No More Heroes 2 came out and it gave you the option to do the motion controls with the Wii Remote, or it gave you the option to just play standard. But Skyward Sword is a little bit different from that game because it gave you a lot more control with your weapon. It wasn't just one direction or two directions or up, down, left, and right. It was pretty much diagonal, so it introduced way more puzzle-based gameplay that was centered around motion controls, not just combat. So they'd have to figure out some way to get that done with a standard controller. So I think there's multiple examples of games that they can look at in order to get that done and have two modes if Skyward Sword were to come over to the Nintendo Switch. And they can take a look at a game like Metal Gear Rising, for example, which gave you a blade mode, and it lets you use the dual analog to control where the blade was swinging. That way, you can have a blade mode in Skyward Sword, and you're going to be able to control it with the analog sticks and go precisely where you want to cut. So that would be my way, at least, in how to get this game to be playable on the Nintendo Switch, whether someone wants to play the game in portable mode or somebody wants to play with a Pro controller, or even if you want to just play it old school like you did on the Nintendo Wii and use motion controls. I think there's a way to get it done. And even with the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, I think you can actually get better reception and better control with the motion with the newer tech. We're going on 2 generations later from there, and the Joy-Cons are pretty impressive in their own right when it comes to their capabilities with motion and accelerometer, gyroscope, and all of that. So I still feel there's a way that they could get it done. And to be honest, I would love to see it because The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is one of those games. It has so many ranging and polarizing effects. I was kind of negative on it at some points, but then there's other things that I really love about the game. But the story and the graphics and the way that they kind of put about certain things with it definitely makes it a worthy candidate for it to come back and let people experience it. Heck, if you look at it, we're going on almost 10 years since Skyward Sword released. There's a lot of new gamers out there that probably were little babies or kids when this game came out and never got the opportunity to play it since it's never been re-released, unless they got it and played it backwards compatible even if they had a Wii U. A lot of people didn't have a Wii U, so I think it'd be a perfect opportunity for Nintendo to bring this one back. Definitely spruce it up a bit. I would love to see some graphics kind of shaped up, obviously 1080p, get that going there, clean up some of the textures, kind of do what they did before with previous Zelda games being brought over from systems, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, or The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. Those games got cleaned up quite a bit, so I'd love to see them actually do that and put in the time and effort for it to be a very high quality re-release on the Nintendo Switch and give people options, so you don't have people that hate motion controls saying, oh, well, this game is cool, but I don't like the motion controls. And then you also have the people that love motion controls saying, okay, well, I still have my motion controls in there. So I feel that with Nintendo, they're pretty much the masters when it comes to gameplay modes and when it comes to gameplay and how they intertwine hardware with gameplay. They've done the best job over the years, in my opinion. Sometimes it works out extremely well, sometimes it doesn't, but more times than not, it works out extremely well. So I definitely feel there's a way for them to do this to make everyone happy. We're just gonna have to wait and see if this actually ends up being correct with this Amazon listing. I just wanted to go over the possibilities and kind of the game itself, some of its history, and how they can actually get this done for you guys. Now, on top of the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword news, there's been a lot of buzz about the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda and Nintendo potentially putting together some type of anniversary collection for that next year. Now, on this channel, we've actually covered that just a little bit. We covered Ocarina of Time, but maybe there could be some other things that could be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, those could be put together in some type of collection for next year. So it seems like Nintendo might be gearing up for some Legend of Zelda goodness on the Switch. So what are you guys' thoughts about all of this when it comes to Skyward Sword in addition to other Legend of Zelda games? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on there. Stay up to date on all latest gaming news and information. Also make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.